And tonight, Dick Pryor brings us another in his series of Oklahoma World War II stories to honor those men and women who won the war. Dick.
Air power was critical to the success of the United States and its allies in World War II. The U.S. Army Air Corps got off to a sputtering start, but once they established air supremacy, it was the beginning of the end for the Axis. A lot of young men wanted to fly. Some were drawn to it by Flying Aces magazine. Others may have just liked that self-confident swagger so many airmen had. Tonight's story is about one of those young flyers who wanted to fight the Germans as his father had during World War I. Air power was critical to the success of the Allies in World War II. Hitler's vaunted Luftwaffe controlled the skies early in the war, but by 1942 that changed. Faced with a four-front aerial war, the Luftwaffe was cracking, and Allied bombing raids pushed deeper and deeper into Germany. Young navigator Fred Norman went on 35 of those missions aboard heavy bombers like the B-17 Flying Fortress.
It seems, as I recall, a good many of our missions were factories, factory complexes or towns with a lot of factories in them. Occasionally we would get intelligence, would find out about a big concentration of petroleum. Of course, we'd knock those out. And the big focal points of the railroads, we were always knocking those out.
Flight crews would awake before dawn, get their instructions, and fly in formation, weaving in and out of enemy fire on the way to the target.
We had a triangular formation. We'd all fly over together to the target, and then when the lead plane dropped his bombs, we all watched and sighted on them, and then we dropped ours. So when our group bombed something, we either totally obliterated it or we missed altogether. And a few of both happened on different missions.
The invasion of Normandy was one of Norman's shortest missions. He calls it a cream puff, flying around the periphery, bombing bridges to prevent the Germans from bringing in reinforcements.
When the weather happened to break really clear, as far as you could see were ships. Either way you looked off to the left, you looked off the right, ships, 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 hundreds of ships. It was just it's the biggest invasion there's ever been in the world by anyone, and man, that was very obvious to see that. We knew in our mind, even though we might have some rough spots, there's no way those Germans are going to win this and stop this, and they, of course, couldn't.
Norman believes he was part of one of the most devastating attacks of the war, the destruction of the German city of Dresden, in which 135,000 people died.
Well, I decided this was a big city, and we were just bombing the tar out of it. We weren't the first group in, there were a couple ahead of us. And so mentally, I just kind of blocked out an area 100 by 100 blocks and thought I'd see how many of them were burning. I didn't have to do any counting. Every last one of them was burning. And we found out later through intelligence that a gigantic part of that whole city was leveled.
With a strategy that had the Americans bombing by day and the British bombing by night, the Allies pounded the Nazis into submission in 1945.
We would not have won World War II. We would have lost it if we did not have air superiority. It all added up to the fact that we had the power and we were willing to use it, and it paid off.
Once he completed 35 missions, Fred returned to the States and became an instructor. Among the aviators he trained, the renowned all-black flying unit, the Tuskegee Airmen. When the war ended, he met his parents for a celebration dinner at the top of the Mark Hopkins Hotel in San Francisco. But it was just dinner. Norman was only 20. He was too young to be served an alcoholic drink. After leaving the service, Fred Norman put his science, math, and navigational skills to use in a different way. He worked at the U.S. Weather Bureau in Tulsa and Tampa, Florida, and in 1965 began a new career as a television meteorologist in Tampa, Amarillo, Denver, and Oklahoma City. Central Oklahoma viewers may remember Fred Norman from his 16 years doing weather at KOCO TV.